Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest In Tune interview. I'm Bryan, and I'm being joined by Jeff Kurtenacker. Hey, Jeff, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, in terms of video game music, you're most well known for your work on WildStar. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's definitely the biggest thing I've done so far.
That's awesome. So, how would you describe WildStar, and how do you get working on that?
WildStar, it was kind of an interesting journey to get to the point of being the composer on the project. But I had met Jason Hayes, who's a composer at Blizzard. He's great, and he and I have been friends for many, many years. We met probably back in 2001 up in LA, and he was writing for Warcraft 3 at the time. He was doing the cinematic music for Warcraft 3, and he heard some of my music, and we became friends. And he invited me down to do the arrangements of all the choir, all the choir music for the cinematics for Warcraft 3. And that was my first sort of seeing how video games, like where they were at. I didn't grow up playing a whole lot of video games, but when I saw what Blizzard was doing with the Warcraft 3 cinematics, I was like, holy cow, this is unbelievable.
You couldn't have chosen, especially at that point, a better place to get into the game music, because Blizzard was like at the forefront. Not that many companies were doing equivalent things with music at that time.
No, it was very fortuitous, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And even now, like they keep pushing the boundaries and the envelope of the way they make games. And so to have that kind of be the first thing I really got my eyes opened to, wow, this is a viable way to, make a living as a composer.
Absolutely.
And so for me, I was late to the game. I know a lot of people have been into game music, for a long time, since Atari days, but I was late to the party. So Jason and I met, and then Jason eventually, through his travelings, he was the audio director and one of the founding members of Carbine Studios.
Right.
And he brought me on to work as a sound designer. And
nice.
So I was hired here as a sound designer, and that was, I think, in the fall of 2008. After a few years, Jason left that position. Ultimately, he wound back up at Blizzard, but in his absence, we needed a composer, and the WildStar was not WildStar at that point. It was still sort of shedding its skin and developing. So I stepped in, and they didn't know I wrote music, but I said, hey, I would really love to write music for this project. And I think because I was already there and I wrote a piece of music as a kind of proof of concept, and they dug it, so it kind of just worked out. And
wow,
yeah, it was really amazing. I couldn't have scripted that in a movie to go.
That's
to
really
go that
cool.
way.
And then you wrote them 10 hours of music.
And then I kind of had to win them over a little bit at first. Like, they had confidence that I could write music, but they wanted to make sure I didn't stray too far from their vision. And after a while, I proved to them that I was going to get the job done. And then they left me alone, and they just said, whatever you want to do is fine with us. And that's when I started to think, man, what if we really did this as cinematic as possible, and where we have a lot of themes working to help tell the story and really feel more immersive in an MMO space, rather than just having the same 2 minutes of music that repeats over and over again.
Yeah, so what were your main influences, your inspiration for WildStar? Like, what kind of soundtrack were you trying to create for it?
Well, originally, the first piece I wrote was a piece called Justice Doesn't Always Wear a Badge. Like, that was which is the Algaroth theme, zone theme. And at that point, I was actually under the impression that we were going to make sort of this space western. We were all kind of talking about how that would look and feel. So I was really, at that time, sort of impressed with what they did with the movie Cowboys and Aliens. And I don't know if you've seen the movie, but the score has got this really cool blend of acoustic guitar and synthesizers. And it was just kind of this dusty but yet modern feel. And when I heard that, I thought, that's what we need more of that sort of influence and that style. So I started trying to do that in alt rock and blending this dusty Western feel. Bastion did a great job of that.
I was going to bring that up. Bastion, actually, even with the piece I brought today, I saw a lot of those influences, and I was curious if that was music you'd heard or if it was just coincidence.
Yeah, actually, Bastion came out right as I was just starting to write for WildStar.
Oh.
When I heard it, I was like, oh, yeah, I'm not crazy. Like, people are doing this. So,
yeah.
And it was great, and I love that soundtrack. So I was trying to sort of figure out how to emulate that in a way that would make sense for our game, because we weren't as edgy or as, maybe our art style wasn't quite the same as Bastion, and we weren't, telling the same story as aliens, cowboys and aliens, but I definitely wanted this sci-fi frontier without being Star Trek, but I wanted it to feel like you were on an adventure exploring this unknown world. And so the acoustic guitar really helps kind of tell that story. And then eventually, as the game developed, we felt like that really lent itself more to the Exiles than the Dominion in the game. The Exiles is kind of this more, Western feel, and the Dominion has a little bit more of a Imperial March feel to it. So
when writing for an MMO, like, what was that process like for you? Were they giving you a bunch of the art assets up front, or what kind of cues would they give you to write a piece?
Yeah, it was great, because Carbine I had written for other games before as a contractor, where we kind of Skype about things, or they send me an email, or they send me some pictures. But it was great to go down and talk to the people, go right down the hall and talk to the actual designers that were designing that zone, or the artists, who were working on that. So I would get in the zone pretty early before you could really play it, but it was artified, it had all the scenic, picturesque art to it. So the world art was done, and you could see some characters there, but you definitely got a feel just by looking at it what kind of zone it was. And then I would talk to the people that were designing the quests, and I said, hey, what is the player going to be expected to do? And once I got a feel for their motivation and how it looked, then I could start to at least write some themes. And if I knew that a certain area, maybe this one cave was going to be overrun with a certain race of people that had a theme, then I got to use their theme and tie it in. And I looked for those kind of ways to weave main story thematic material into the zone. And every zone we gave its own theme, because I don't know, I guess I was a little bit of a martyr. Like, I wanted to write as much music as possible, but every zone looked so different that it was really hard for me to justify reusing a piece of music that didn't really tell that story. So the art was just a huge inspiration, and then just trying to mold that into what the character's motivation is as they move through that zone. Is it mysterious? Is it magical? Is it dangerous?
Right.
And
given the kind of ambient nature of MMO music, people are going to be listening to this many, many hours, in the same zone at the same time. Did that restrict how melodic you were able to be? Did you go for more of an ambient style, or how did you kind of toe the line?
I had not played a lot of MMOs, which in some ways was blissfully ignorant of what had been done before. And in some ways, I found myself going, man, I should know this. I should know what people want to expect. But yeah, we wanted it to be thematic. And I knew it was a chance that people were going to go, it's a small world syndrome, where they're like, okay, I can only take this for so long. And so it took a lot of trial and error. What I did was I would make a 2-minute, I felt like 2 minutes was a good length to introduce a theme for a zone. So when you walk into a zone, the first thing you get is a 2-minute zone theme that sort of sets the mood and the emotional context of where you are. And then after that, you get a little bit of silence, and then it's followed by anywhere from 3 to 5 pieces of ambient music that are a minute maybe each. And it just kind of plays like in a jukebox order. And those, are cut from the same cloth as the theme, but they're not really thematic, melodic material. And then we cycle back again, and about 5 to 7 minutes later, you hear the main theme of that zone again, and then followed by the ambient music. So it's not a persistent theme, but you definitely hear it if you're in a zone for an hour, you're going to hear that theme.
Right. That's really smart because it keeps the theme present. So you'll connect the theme in your mind to the zone you're in, but it's not like you're listening to that same 1 minute loop.
Right. Yeah. And it was dangerous, because we knew how long people were going to spend in these zones. And, so it took a lot of trial and error to get that formula to feel good. But even when the game released, like when we launched it in 2014, I thought, oh man, what have I done? I may have just messed this up completely. And fortunately, I've gotten so many emails or tweets from people just saying, normally I turn the music down in MMOs, but I'm level 50. I haven't touched the music once. It's still full volume. And for me, I feel like, okay, we've done something right. If people are still engaged and still, able to sort of withstand the melodic music after playing hundreds of hours, and we've done it.
Yeah, it's kind of like in an MMO music, your metric of success is what percentage of the players are using Spotify and what percentage of the players are actually still listening to this. Exactly.
And so I think we did some things right. Obviously, we could have improved some things, but the fact that we wanted it to help tell the story and be immersive, we didn't want to. It's tough to separate the music from the zone in my mind, and that's what I found a lot of players experience as well. So that was super gratifying.
That's awesome. So how much music did you end up making for the game?
When it launched, it was right around 7.5 or 8 hours, and then it slowly expanded, and we're probably pushing over 10 hours now. But it's been, it was a lot. And I think, again, because of what I wanted to do with the theme, I would kind of paint myself into a corner, right? So I would have the Elden theme, and then if they got into a special situation where the Elden was doing something with another major world group, I would mix those two themes. Well, now I have a piece of music that can never be used again unless those two world groups are sort of...
It's so specific.
Exactly. And so what I found myself doing was I'd write this piece of music that was perfect for this one area of the game and very, very difficult to use anywhere else. And so I would just go, oh, well, boy, that was dumb. I shouldn't have done that. And then I'd write a new piece of music for that specific area, which then I could never use again. And it just sort of snowballed, but I was having so much fun and no one was telling me to stop that I was like, this is great. I'm just going to keep doing this.
That's like the best situation you get yourself in, for sure.
It was awesome.
That actually is a great transition, though, to the track I wanted to talk about today, which is To Dust We Shall Return. And you were saying this is a variation on the Elden theme. So is this one of those times where the Elden's mixed with a different kind of culture?
This is exactly that situation where you're in the middle of this desert, dusty, kind of Western-looking climate. And there's these ancient Elden artifacts that are, kind of uncovered and they're below the sand. And I thought, well, the Elden theme is very synthesized. It's all synthesizers, and it feels very spacey. Yeah. But that wasn't really the environment you were in. You're in this kind of Western dusty feeling. So I was like, well, I didn't feel comfortable just letting the player down in a way by giving them just the normal theme for the Elden. So I took their theme and I sort of wrapped it up in more of this dusty Western feeling, and I combined the two. And then, now I have a piece of music that I can never use again until somewhere in the game we get the Elden ruins in some dusty Western setting. That's exactly what that piece was. It was a solution to a problem that maybe didn't need to be solved, but in my mind, I felt like it would be so much more satisfying if the player walks in and we keep that desert feeling going, and then all of a sudden the Elden theme comes in with that same kind of vibe. I think it'd work really well.
It was those two different influences that I think captured it for me, because if it was just kind of the spacey piano and Elden theme, that would have been one thing. And if it was just the Western theme, that would have been another. But the fact that they were both there's something uncanny about it that just made me listen to it repeatedly.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think it feels sort of beautifully disjointed in a way. And it shouldn't work, but it does. And it feels... When you go to that part of the zone and you see that area and that music starts playing, it just feels good. It feels more natural than, like you said, been pushing it one way or the other.
Yeah, and just the breadth of instruments you get from it, because you get this piano, and then you get a choir, and then you get like a banjo, and it's just so many different things coming at once that I think that's what's great about video game music in a lot of ways. You get all these ensembles you just won't hear elsewhere.
Absolutely.
And when I was listening to this, I absolutely thought Bastion. So I'm really glad you kind of took that as an inspiration, because I think it fits it incredibly well.
Yeah, I mean, Bastion was a great example of, how are you fusing these different musical instruments together in a way? And video games is just such a great platform to do that. When I started putting banjo in some of this music in WildStar, I think some of the people in the office were like, what on earth do we have banjo for? And then when we got into beta testing, people were like, we need more banjo. This is the best thing ever. Because you don't hear banjo in video game music very much. So it was things like that where you get to fuse these elements together. It's very liberating to sort of have that freedom in a video game, because there's no expectation of what this world should sound like. And that's what I think I love about video games, is kind of the sky's the limit.
Absolutely. Let's go ahead and play this track for everyone real quick, and then we can head back and talk some more about it. That was To Dust We Shall Return from WildStar. The link we have there on YouTube might have it as the Biodome. Apparently these people don't actually know the track names, but I hear Jeff, you're trying to get in touch with them to let them know the correct ones.
Yeah, slowly but surely. When I have free time, if I'm on a link and some of them don't even have names, like, because there's hundreds of tracks, and the 30-second piece of ambient music that plays in a cave off somewhere, I didn't bother to name.
Yeah.
But whoever uploaded it, there's hundreds of tracks.
Oh my gosh, so many.
And whoever uploaded all those took the time, which I guess I'm flattered that, they ripped them from the game illegally and put them on YouTube illegally, but then they lovingly gave each one a name. And some of the names are really good and pretty accurate, and some of them aren't even close. And so I try to correct in the comment section. I'll just say, hey, this is actually called this, and it's from this part of the game.
Yeah, I was looking through the music and saw you commenting, and I'm like, whoa, the composer's in here. That's hilarious. Yeah. That's great. Get some real knowledge in here. But yeah, actually, that's a good time to mention to everyone, for everyone who doesn't want to be illegal, which I encourage, the Volume 2 of the WildStar soundtrack recently came out, right? Okay.
It will be out August 23rd, and we just had the It's on pre-order. I guess it started on Tuesday, the 9th. So
fantastic.
So it's on pre-order right now. It's a digital download only, but volume 2, and I'm hoping we can even squeeze out volume 3. We have so much material, we could do way more volumes, but we'll see what the powers that be allow us to put out there.
You can get all of the canon names there, all the real names of the tracks.
Exactly.
It cracks me up. Sometimes when talking to composers, you'll mention like a track name and they'll just look at you blankly and be like, do you mean Ambient 6? Because I didn't name that. Some intern named that who made the track listing for the album. But
I'll get emails and they'll say, oh, my favorite piece of music is this. And I'm like, I've never even heard of that. And then I have to go on YouTube and search by that name, and then it comes
up.
Can
you sing it for me?
That would help. Yeah.
Awesome. So what would you say were to you the most memorable part of composing this piece in particular? Like, do you have a favorite aspect of it or a favorite part of working on it, or does it even stick out in your head at this point?
Actually, that whole area was it's an area in a zone called Galeras, and then there's a subzone called Gale Canyon, and that whole area was actually really fun because you went from lush green rolling hills where I did some sort of Irish influenced, beautiful music that was very lush, and then went down to this canyon where there's windstorms and it's dust and sand. And it's just such a different feeling, from an art standpoint, that I remember the coolest thing for the Gale Canyon music and that particular track was, one, I got to play some guitar, which was a lot of fun because it was easy enough where I could sort of do it. A lot of the stuff later on that became more difficult, we hired a guy who's actually way better than I am. But to also program, it's called the dobro, and it's kind of that slide guitar you hear in there. Yes. And that is all, it's all sample library. It's played on a keyboard with MIDI, but it was so fun to go in and program those slides, and once it just started to feel that kind of greasy, dusty feeling. So I remember that whole Gale Canyon area working with the dobro, thinking like, okay, this is cool. I've never used a sample before in my life, and now I'm digging it.
That's really cool. That actually leads into another question I had, which was, what were your resources like working on WildStar? Was it mostly working with virtual instruments? Did you get access to a lot of live instruments or groups, or what was it like for you?
It was definitely a mixture of both. I was fortunate to have a great sample library with lots of great instruments to work from in a virtual sense. But then we were able to convince Carbine and NCSoft to hire full orchestras. And so some of the greatest days in my experiences on this project was going up and recording with 75, sometimes a 90-piece orchestra up in LA, and we recorded at Warner Brothers and Sony, and we wanted this to feel more like a movie soundtrack than a video game soundtrack in a way. And so we got the same players that were playing on the movies, and we had it engineered and mixed by the same people that are doing the movies. And it was just such a satisfying experience to have some of LA's finest musicians bring my music to life. I had never had that experience before. Right. I might never again. I don't know, but it was it was awesome. So that was definitely a highlight of the whole process, to be able to have those resources. And over the years that I was working on the score, we probably had about, I don't know, like 12 or 15 days of actual recording. And so there was quite a bit of resources spent to make that soundtrack really come alive. And I'm grateful for it, and I think it really pays off in the end.
Oh, yeah. I am a huge advocate of allocating budget resources for soundtracks. I mean, to me, that's often going to be the most memorable part of a game, is what the music was and how it fit in with the game. So the more you can put towards that, the better.
Brian, I could not agree with you more on that.
Oh, absolutely. If you're ever having budget meetings, just give me a call. I'll give an impassioned argument on your defense.
I'm going to take your number down because I will need to call you in.
But yeah, that is super cool. Did you have a favorite piece they played for you?
I remember there's a couple moments that really were pretty magical, but we recorded the main theme and the character creation screen at Sony, which I never thought I'd ever step foot in the Sony studio lot in my life. And so we got to record there, and just hearing the character creation music, which is this 7-minute sort of, it's just this medley of a lot of the major themes, and it just kind of weaves in and out. And as that started to come to life in that room, at one point I just even stopped conducting, because I was conducting the orchestra, and I was just sort of lost in it. Unfortunately, they all have a click track in their ears, and they don't really need me to wave my arms, but it makes me feel better. So, but I just got lost in what they were doing, and just sort of very surreal to hear these notes come to life in that way. So that was awesome. And then we did there was another session where there's a piece called Our Perception of Beauty, which is Drusera's theme in the game. And a lot of that music, that feeling in that music, I was kind of writing it for my own daughter in a way, to sort of, she's young. She was like 5 at the time. And just to try to explain musically that this world is maybe mysterious and hurtful at times, but there is hope and beauty in all of it. And the relationships that you have and the experiences you're going to have. And so trying to convey that, because the Drusera character has a lot of those same sort of emotional context to her. When I heard that recorded and played live and come to life, I mean, I was emotionally just moved from sort of bringing up all the memories, not memories, but my feelings. My daughter's still alive, so it's not memories, but feelings towards my daughter. And it was just a really moving moment for me. And fortunately, it came right before a break, so we recorded that, and then we had like a union break, and I got 10 minutes to kind of regroup, compose yourself. Yeah. So it's just powerful when people who their job is to put life into music notes on a page, and then they're doing that to your music notes on a page. Man, it's a powerful experience.
Nice. Nice. Well, you're definitely making me want to give WildStar a try. I would love to see some of this music in its original context. People can find it it's on Steam now. It's like free to play, if I remember correctly.
It is.
Kind of did a relaunch recently.
Yep.
Also, like you said, the soundtrack is out, both part 1 and part 2. Or part 2 is out in end of August, so in about a week. So where can people find that easiest? Is it on iTunes or?
Yeah, wherever they usually like to buy digital music. Hopefully they still buy music. But yeah,
Yes.
iTunes, Amazon, Google Play. It is on Spotify. So you can go to Sumthing.com. They're the label that they do a lot of video game soundtracks if you're ever interested in just perusing. But
Nice.
It's on there. So wherever you get digital music, it's probably there.
But yep. Awesome. I encourage everyone to go out and do that. If you like video game music and you want companies to be releasing more soundtracks, then buy them and then companies will release them.
I love
That's
that
how it
idea.
works. So yeah, go check that out. And that should be about it. Jeff, is there anything else you wanted to mention about your work or?
No, I'm good. I feel like I talked a ton, so sorry about that.
No, believe me, that's exactly what I want.
Okay, good.
So the less I talk, the better, believe me. But that's awesome. I really appreciated getting to talk to you about this. WildStar, I was very impressed with what I listened to, so I look forward to going back to it and hearing more from it. And there is a lot to listen to.
Yeah, there's a lot, so it'll keep you busy. So just spread it out,
Yes.
maybe one track a day.
I'll be back in a year and I'll let you know how it was.
Yeah, perfect.
Fantastic. Well, thanks so much for your time, Jeff.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And where can people find you on Twitter?
Twitter is just my name, @Jeff Kurtenacker.
Fantastic. And that'll be in the show notes as well. All right. Well, we'll head back to the show now, everyone. You've been listening to a segment from the OverClocked PodCast, the official podcast of OCRemix.org. If you'd like to hear more, check out the rest of the channel, or get the full episodes from iTunes or your podcast provider of choice. And for more video game music and remixes, check out OCRemix.org.